Today's not the greatest of days for weather. We've got pretty much grey skies. There is a bit of texture in there. There's no light. I think it's extremely unlikely we're going to get a nice sunset this evening. And I was kind of tempted to just stay at home. Oh yeah. Look at those skies. Gorgeous. Okay, so that beach was not going to be a good location for sunset. So I left there, and on my way back to where I've parked the car, I passed this little bay, kind of makeshift rough marina. Been here before. There's lots of little boats in here. Some of them are obviously well cared for, some of them are wrecks. There's some sunken ones out there. And I thought it might make an interesting shot if we do get a little bit of sunset colour in the sky. There's a little bit coming through now. Now one of the challenges is it's very muddy here. I can show you. It's actually really horrible, nasty mud. So I'm going to have to clean my boots when I get home. But I've managed to get a stable position for the tripod. I've gone pretty low down, and we'll see it down there, to kind of minimise the amount of sea there is in there. I've got the boats kind of leading out in a pattern, and I've gone completely wide angle, 16mm, because I want to make sure that this boat here and that boat there, where is it? There, are just in the frame, and they kind of create a line moving out towards that entrance exit to this little bay. And there's some quite nice tones out there. There's some quite nice cloud patterns in the sky. Now, of course, the challenge is these boats are moving, so I'm going to have to make a choice. At the moment, I've got f11 ISO 64, and that's giving me about a third of a second. So there's going to be some blur in those boats. The other option I've got, I could probably bump the ISO up a little bit to get a faster shutter speed to freeze them a bit more. I might try both and see which looks better. Blurred boats are kind of okay, but I'm not sure it's going to work for this scene. Anyway, I'm just going to wait and see what happens with some colours in that sky. 16 to 35 lens, 16mm, and I've got a 2-stop hard-edged ND Gradin just to balance the sky, stop it from blowing out. And it might work. Getting some kind of magenta purpley tones in the sky. We're still 5 minutes before sunset. There's not a lot of light on the scene, but it still looks quite pretty. As I said, some of those boats are moving quite a lot, so I'm almost certainly going to end up with some blurriness in the boats, but it might still work. I'm hoping I've got the sort of pattern of the boats the best I can. I was trying to get a shot where there were sort of a limited amount of boats overlapping, but it's just not possible. So I've just gone for what I think looks the best. And now we'll just wait and see what happens with the light. Okay, slight change of plans. I took a test shot, and the low point of view was just bunching the boats up too much. There was no separation, so I've brought the camera up a bit higher, quite a lot higher actually. That's providing a little bit more separation. Just starting to get some tones in the sky, some streaks in the sky, which is looking nice. So At the moment I've gone to f8 ISO 400 and that's giving me a 1/6 of a second. But even at a 1/6 of a second those boats are blurring quite a lot. So it's quite windy, and if you can see those boats, they're moving around all over the place. So I'm either going to have to accept that they're blurry, or I'm going to have to do maybe a couple of shots, maybe do one with the ISO bumped up to, I don't know, 1,000 or more to get a shorter exposure. We'll see. Yeah, we're getting some quite nice colours up there now. Fairly subtle, but nice sort of streaking bands across. Yeah, we're past sunset now. There's no light, no direct light on this scene here, but we've got some nice sort of pinks and oranges and purples in the sky. I'm going to creating this kind of diagonal band across, because now that the sun's gone down, the light on the scene is much more even. So I've taken the ND grad out, and at the moment I'm shooting f8 ISO 64 in 1/3 of a second. Oh yeah, look at those skies, gorgeous. So I'm quickly rattling off shots here. I've done shots ranging from ISO 64 at 1.6 seconds all the way up to ISO 1600, I think. I can't remember because I did it so fast. And then I can decide to merge them in any way that I see fit. Oh, look at that sky! Fabulous! Wasn't expecting that this evening. Just look at those colours, spectacular, gorgeous. They're starting to fade now. They were more red before, they're starting to fade more to orange and yellow. We are 20 minutes after sunset now, and as always it's after sunset that you get the best. I've fired off a group of shots ranging from 1/60th of a second at ISO 2000 in an attempt to try and freeze those boats, all the way down to a lot less than that, probably about half a second at ISO 64. Obviously ISO 64 is going to give me the highest quality image, but the boats are going to be blurry. ISO 2000 is going to have some grain without a doubt. I can probably take most of it out in post. So as a possibility I can merge a faster exposure and a short exposure to get the best from this scene. Yeah, fabulous. Just look at those colours. I think that's best described as epic light. But here's the thing, it was almost too epic, because I had real problems processing this image to make it look any good. So this is the final image, but this is what the raw file will look like straight out of the camera, and you can see it's almost entirely red. And I spent a long time processing this image to try and make it look any good, because with it all being red like that, it just had no contrast. It just didn't stand out at all. So I knew I had to do something a bit clever with it. Now I played around a lot with different ways of processing this image. And what I've actually done is I processed it, and I'm going to try to replicate that processing now, but I'm probably going to have to refer to some notes to make sure I do it roughly the same way. I did also have to correct a lot of converging verticals. You may have noticed in the video that I said I was shooting at 16mm, and I had the camera angled up quite a lot to favour the sky. And if you look at the raw file, you can see that the masts are all leaning into the centre, and on that bit of land out on the right hand side the trees are angled in. Now I chose not to correct the entire image, so I didn't warp or shift the entire image. What I did was I selectively took parts of the image and warped it and then layer masked it to blend it all back in again. I'm not going to show you that now, it took me a long time to do, but the basic technique I've already shared in a previous video, and I'll stick a link to that up there now. And if you're watching on one of these apps that doesn't show those links, I'll stick a link to it in the description to this video as well. Okay, so the first thing to say, this is the raw file straight out of the camera. You can see when it was imported, and it's had nothing done to it. Now, although I shot several different versions of this, bumping the ISO up to get faster shutter speeds to try and remove the blur in the boats, I was quite lucky on this one, because I managed to get a shot that I timed well enough that at 1/4 of a second at ISO 125 I managed to avoid too much blurring in these boats. I managed to catch it just at the right time. I know there's a little tiny bit of blurring in there, but nothing that I think detracts from the image. And that's important because this scene is pretty dark, and I am going to be doing a lot of boosting the shadows. And with a high ISO image, boosting the shadows would have introduced noise, whereas because this is only ISO 125, I can boost the shadows a lot without introducing any significant noise in here. So that's worth mentioning just to start with. If I had ended up using something that was shot at ISO 2000, I'm not sure how I would have done it, to be honest, because I think I would have had too many problems with noise to make a usable image. Okay, so let's look and see what I actually did in terms of the processing. This image is incredibly red. I mean, the sky is just red with those strip patches of blue in it, but that reflected light coming down on the scene just makes the whole thing actually look quite flat. And I know I'm going to have to do something with that. So let's start off with some basics. I normally do my lens correction, remove chromatic aberration, and enable the profile corrections. Now the only problem with that, enabling the profile corrections, is actually dragging this boat too close to the edge. So I'm going to go down to the bit that says distortion, and I'm going to bring that all the way down. And that leaves it with a nice gap at the edge. Okay, in the basics, I'm not going to do anything on transform because I said I'm going to correct all the verticals in Photoshop, and I'll put a link to that video when I do. But in the basics, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the highlights down to about 30, I think it was 30, checking my notes. And I'm going to bring the shadows up, I'm going to do that to 28 in the end. And I'm not doing anything else in there for the time being. What I am going to do is I'm going to put a graduated filter in on the sky, zero the effect out, and all I did on that was I actually pulled the highlights back a bit more, just to darken that sky a bit to help balance the scene. And then another graduated filter, again zero the effect out, and this one was for the foreground. Kind of went roughly like this, and on this one I pulled the temperature all the way back, making it a lot bluer. I even pulled the tint back a little bit to put some green in that foreground, so I'm taking a lot of the red out of that foreground, and already some more details have started to appear. And I am going to bring the shadows all the way up to bring some details out in here. And I'm actually going to bring the saturation up a bit, not because I want to bring out the reds, I actually want to bring out the blues, and because I've made it bluer, that's what that will do. And that was about there. I also added a radial filter over this bit of land here, and on that I brought the shadows up about there. And then the final thing I did, I went back into the basic setting and I actually just brought the exposure up a little bit overall to about there. And then, as I said, I took it into Photoshop, I corrected the verticals and I just cropped it in a little bit because as the boats were moving, the balance between the gap here on the right hand side on this boat and the gap on this side had shifted a bit, and I wanted the gap to be about the same, so I did crop it in just a little bit. And once again, this is the final image. Okay, so that's it. That's how I did the colour processing on that image. As I said, I did the verticals correction as well, but I'm not going to go through that here. This will be a ridiculously long video. I hope you've enjoyed this video, which shows most of the process of capturing this image. It was a completely unexpected bonus on that particular evening. I had no idea we were going to get a sunset like that. In fact, I was convinced we weren't going to get anything worth shooting at all. So it's always nice when nature hands you a bonus. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, then please consider hitting that thumbs up, the like button. You could consider sharing it on social media, or you could do both if you feel so inclined. And of course, if you're not already a subscriber, please consider just hitting that subscribe button now and tap the little notification bell. You get a notification every time I put a new video out, which is twice a week, Saturdays and Wednesdays. But on that note, according to my schedule, my next video is due out on Wednesday the 25th of December, which is Christmas Day. And I'm not going to put a video out on Christmas Day. What I'm actually going to do is put a video out on Christmas Eve. I've got no idea what it's going to be yet because I haven't shot it. But I'm going to put it out probably sometime in the morning on Christmas Eve. Now, you can watch it on Christmas Eve, you can watch it on Christmas Day, you can watch it whenever you like. Obviously it's a family time, so maybe you won't be on YouTube for a little while, but I hope you'll check it out anyway. And if you've tapped that subscribe button and that notification bell, then you'll know it's there to watch. Okay, enough of that. As always, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch, so thank you very much, and until the next video, bye.